When you're conducting a pour-through, it's best to conduct it after the plant has received its total volume of irrigation for the day, whether it be in one shot for 50 minutes or an hour, or cyclically over the day in 3 installments of 20 minutes each. After the last irrigation has finished, wait 30 minutes to pour through the volume of water that leaches out the water at the bottom of the container. The general principle behind a pour-through is that once the plant reaches container capacity, which is all of the airspace in the substrate is saturated and then allowed to drain for about 30 minutes so airspace can refill some of the area where the water was. Once plants are saturated after irrigation, we can just pour a small amount of water on the top of the container and it will push out water that is at the bottom of the container that the roots are being bathed in. That water is usually nutrient rich and has a different pH than the irrigation water in which was applied to the plant. The volume of water that is used for a pour-through is container volume dependent. And you can go to nurserycropscience.info and find the nursery extraction procedure publication in order to determine for which container volume you should pour through amount of water. Today we are conducting a pour-through on 3-gallon containers, and according to the pour-through extraction procedure, we should pour through 350 milliliters of water through the container in order to collect 50 milliliters of water as our sample. In the document, there are conversions for ounces if that's easier to use, but one way I found in the field to measure milliliters is to use one of the containers that's provided by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services in conjunction with North Carolina Extension Service. I have calibrated this container with the amount of water that is required, and it turns out that these markings on the side are fairly precise. So I put in 350 milliliters of water, and it's right between the 300 and the 400. Make sure that you pour it evenly over the container, both sides. In some pour-through publications, they'll tell you to use distilled water or deionized water, which you can find at your local grocery store. However, I found that trying to have that water on site for use for a pour-through is sometimes a limiting factor for growers because you've got to go up to the grocery store, get the water and bring it back. I prefer just use the irrigation water that the plants are receiving every day, measure the EC and the pH of that water, and just subtract it from the leachate that we get at the bottom of the container. It's a whole lot easier and the water is there on site already. If the theory of the pour-through is correct, a saturated container with water poured on the top is going to displace water at the bottom to come out into the container to collect that leachate. Then it doesn't really matter what type of water you use on the top to push through. That's why you can use either distilled water or irrigation water. After you pour the water on the plants, you can wait about 10 minutes for the water to cycle through the plant and collect into the plastic container at the bottom.